If you like to cycle through woods, past rock cuts, lakes, marshlands, and ponds, then the Cataraqui Trail may be the place for you. It's located just north of Kingston, starts in Strathcona, and goes all the way to Smith Falls. We like to do it in sections. So today's section, we decided to start at Perth Road Village and then go all the way to Chaffeys Locks, which is a World Heritage Site. We actually cycled 24.9 kilometers, almost 25 kilometers, so a little past Chaffeys Locks, and then came around back to the little town, the World Heritage Site, which is along the Rideau Canal, and then another 19 and a half kilometers back, so a total distance of almost 45 kilometers. It's a beautiful, beautiful cycling trail, probably my favorite part of it on the Cataraqui Trail, which is almost 100 kilometers long. And if you get the chance, if you're in the Kingston area, we highly recommend it. And we're off. Perth Road Village to Chaffeys Locks on the Cataraqui Trail. So at this point, we crossed Perth Road, or otherwise known as Division Street, if you're in the Kingston area. And you cross the road, and we're heading east towards Chaffeys Locks. The first part of the trail is a nice gravel path. The great thing about the Cataraqui Trail is actually an old railway line. They removed the ties and have set it up, so it's a great walking path. It's actually part of the Rideau and the Canadian Trail, or the Trans-Canada Trail. So the elevations are only a 3% grade at most. I think maybe in one section it might be 4%. Because of the rail lines, they couldn't go up any significant grade. So when they built these back in the 1800s, it was fairly level. So generally no more than a 3% grade, so very level, very smooth for the most part. Although today I found that a good section was gravel like you see here right now, but there were other sections which were more of a cut grass, and all the grass was cut, easy to get through. I didn't downshift, but I'm okay. It's the only hill on the trail. This is the only hill on the trail. We should know by now. It's clear. Pinnacon Road. So there's only one particular section where you had to do some climbing. It's a short distance up, maybe 30 feet up and down again. And that happened only because they decided to build a road here, the Pinnacon Road, and they had to cross a small stream. And when they did that, they had to raise the road quite significantly and basically remove part of the old Cataraqui railway line. But it's easy to get up and down, and then for the rest of the ride all the way to Chaffeys Locks, it's quite level. As I said, no more than a 3% grade. The other thing you'll notice here is that we've gone from a gravel path to more of a grassy path, but you see that there's gravel on either side here where people have walked or ridden, and in the middle there is grass. Every once in a while you'll come across a railway tie where they failed to remove them, which is also interesting to see. And then in a couple of sections we found it was just grass. Now, on today's ride, we found that it was a little damper than most, and the reason for that is there was a large storm that went through the following week. There was a hurricane, I think it was Hurricane Beryl, went through the Mediterranean and really changed the weather patterns in the area. So we got a lot of wind and rain for almost a solid week up here in the Kingston area. So there was one section which is a little bit low-lying where we had to ride our bike through a little bit of water. Wasn't very long, maybe only a 50-foot stretch, and you'll see that later on in the video. But for the most part, there's generally no water on this particular trail. So So in addition to the low grade, as I said, most of it being around 2% with a max of around 3%, other than when you cross a few roads, you'll see that it's very straight. Again, this being an old railway line, that's what you would expect. So it's a pretty much a straight run all the way past Chaffeys Locks, all the way actually from one end to the other, from Strathcona, which is to the west of Kingston, and then Smith Falls, which is to the very east of the Kingston. Now, you may have noticed that we actually crossed 2 or 3 roads at this point, and that occurs in the first few kilometers from Perth Road. After that, you're basically more in nature, so you're going to be going through a lot of lakes. There's not a lot of roads cutting through it. So until we get to Chaffeys Locks, you're pretty much out in the wilderness. So you're by yourself. The trail is well used by hikers and people who walk, as well as cyclists, especially on the weekends, but you need to be prepared with spare tires and tools and so forth, because you may be out here by yourself. Although I would say you probably have to go no more than about 5 kilometers and you'll be at a road cut, or roadway, I should say. Now, the roadway is well maintained. The grass is always cut, but it is a little bit rough. So at places, I know people who use their street tires to ride the trail, but I don't recommend that. I think at a minimum you should have a gravel tire bike, or gravel tire on your bike, fat tire bike if you have one of those, electric bike, or a mountain bike setup, which is what I ride. So I'm not saying you can't do it with your street bike, but it probably wouldn't be as comfortable with all the bumps and so forth.
They cut the grass like they always do, so... I'm going to get in front of you there. So the first part of the trail was nice and gravelly. They actually smoothed it out. And this part of the trail, they don't normally put gravel down, but they cut the grass, so it was always in good shape. But because of this part of the trail, I would probably not recommend using street tires, although it's perfectly okay to do it. It's just a little rougher. Having a mountain bike or gravel tires is the way to go on these trails.
So you can see there's a lot of variation in the scenery as you go along the trail. Not only does the path change from gravel to grassy areas, but you see these little streams or wetlands on either side, and then oftentimes you will see turtles, ducks, and on this particular trip we saw a couple of instances where we saw beavers and muskrats, as well as swans. Great place to just get away from everything and experience nature and some of the wildlife. It's not unusual for us to even come across deer, and one time I came across a coyote running across the trail. Along the trail, you'll come to several different rest spots where they've actually put out chairs where you can sit and enjoy the view as well. And at either end, you'll generally find places where they may have a bicycle repair station as well, or places to pump up your tire. Unfortunately, there isn't one at the Perth Road stop, but I believe there's one at Chaffeys Locks. Now we're riding right now in the middle of July, and therefore the foliage is quite thick, so the views are somewhat restricted. Normally I take this trail either in the spring or the fall, The reason I like the spring is the leaves aren't out, so the vistas are that much greater. It's really easy to see all the rock cuts, and on the left here there's quite a sizable rock cut which they cleared to use probably to make a base for this particular trail. That's how they kept it level, and as you'll see later on,
look at the muskrat nest there, or
very high
beaver
elevation
nest, it looks like.
Of the trail.
Too big for a muskrat.
It falls away up to about 67 feet, which is amazing when you think about how much work they must have taken. And these rock cuts where you can tell where they chiseled out sections, and they use that for the base of their rail line. Anyways, the scenery changes in this section from rock cuts, and off to my right there's actually a small lake. I would imagine it's not overly deep because there's no cottages around it, but it is fairly long. It's probably a good kilometer to 2 kilometers long. I was wondering one day if I should bring my fishing rod here and check it out, because I imagine it doesn't get fished very often. It would be a decent place to catch some nice fish, because all these water crossings or ponds and lakes seem to have something into it. And this one, I've never seen a boat on it, so it would probably be a great place to try.
One of the reasons I love this trail, it just keeps changing. From gravel, sort of fields, and farmlands to woods and rocky outcrops, lakes. It's hard to beat. Now this is a Monday, so there's also nobody on the trail. It's really not that occupied. So nobody to really walk around or ride around, I should say. Just a real pleasure to come out. And today is, mid-July. Got a whole bunch of dragonflies, but really no horseflies or mosquitoes. Temperature is about 26 degrees Celsius, but because you're in the shade with all these trees, it really doesn't feel hot. Beautiful rocks here. Looks like we've had a little bit of rain. Are we gonna ride through it? I think
Whoa.
I'm afraid I'll slip. Not too bad. Good bank here. That's unusual. I guess that's from all the rain we had last week. Uh-oh. I'm going to get wet here anyways, so I'm going to give her a try. Fortunately, the base is actually gravel, so it's not too bad. Well, that wasn't half as bad as I was expecting. So there was rain from Hurricane Beryl down in the States that brought a lot of clouds and rain up here. So I think we're seeing the effects of it. Trail's a little muddier in this section, and obviously overflowed. But nice and dry here again. Nice to see that the grass has been cut here though. But I'm wondering, with the weather we've had this spring, lots of rain, there hasn't been a lot of cyclists.
As you can see, we're going through open area fields, and then we go right back into woods and along lakes and ponds and marshlands, through rock cuts. It's ever-changing, which really stimulates or keeps me stimulated when I do these rides. It's always looking from side to side, and as I said earlier, right now we're pedaling or cycling in the summer, which with all the leaves, because it's quite lush out here, cuts down the visibility. My favorite times are to come in the early spring when there's no leaves on the trees, so you can see a lot more into the woods and see all the rock cuts and valleys and so forth. But probably the best time to do these trails is in the fall. Well, one, it's a little bit cooler, but as you know, the northern or eastern Ontario has a beautiful fall foliage, and is with all the different colors, is just absolutely gorgeous when you ride through these trails, which mostly are composed of deciduous trees. There is a lot of white pine as well that you see, but for the most part it's all deciduous, so you see a lot of different leaf colors, and that just makes it incredibly beautiful.
Actually surprised we haven't seen a deer or something like that come across like we normally do.
And we haven't seen any other bikers. There was a guy that passed me when I first got there. Before you guys.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Well, we haven't seen any hikers. Normally this time of year you see people hiking down the trail.
Hiking or walking the dogs.
Yeah. Well, hikers do, doing the whole Trans-Canada Trail. Or at least this section. Go a little slower. I got Andrew behind us. Got the black-eyed Susans along the trail here too now. Black-eyed Susans. Well, this is pretty spectacular. I can't believe how damp it is from all the rain last week, I guess. There's the Rideau Trail right there going off to our left. That's not very well marked in terms of, I think, the trail itself. Hold up a minute, Hein. Yeah, no, Andrew's good.
So just before Chaffeys Locks, they have another rest stop here. They have a bicycle rack, overhead covering, a bench you can sit down, and they also have a sign that explains the history of Chaffeys Locks, as well as they give you a map of the whole Cataraqui Trail. So a good place to take a rest before you enter the village. Now this is actually probably my favorite part of the trail, mostly because of the large overhanging trees.
And we shall soon be at the Chaffeys Locks. We're coming into where the train trestle was built in the early 1900s. And I think it's Indian Lake on our left-hand side.
And we're approaching a large railway trestle that they put in a long time ago. And it's just a nice place to stop and take a look because it crosses over the Rideau Canal. There's often boats and just beautiful scenery at this particular location. Now, since we're approaching Chaffeys Locks, which is an old village, there's also a number of different cottages here as well. So great things to take a look at. They're bordering on to the left of me, which is, I would say north, would be Indian Lake. And then underneath the bridge, obviously, is the Rideau Canal. And to the right is Opinacon Lake.
What a beautiful spot. Bicycle pumping station by the troll under the bridge. Reform troll, apparently.
How did he get in there?
Just a nice place to stop, eh?
So the Rideau Canal was built in the 1800s, so there obviously were a lot of lakes in the canal or rivers itself, but by forming it and putting in all the locks, they created a lot larger lakes. Right now we're just going through part of the canal, and you'll see a lot of boat traffic, especially on weekends and middle part of July. A lot of people will come from Ottawa and go all the way to Kingston, which is the main reason they built this particular canal. I guess in 1800s, the British government was worried about possible access to Ottawa being cut off by the Americans during the War of 1812, so they built the canals to have a safe route by water for shipping goods back and forth up to Ottawa and Montreal, Kingston area. So it was built as a protective measure or defensive measure, and it still stands today. And now it's actually a World Heritage site in Canada, and very pleasant to come and check out. One of my favorite spots on the Rideau Canal is Chaffeys Locks. It's just set up with the Okinagan Lodge where you can get dinner or lunch. They have an ice cream shop there. They have a few museums as well, but you can also just sit along the locks and watch the boats go through. It's very enjoyable and, as I said, very beautiful.
Yep.
You watch the Unchained series?
No. Is it good?
Oh, that's excellent. I'm just watching series 2, which is...
Huh. What's it?
Season 2 is the 2023 Tour de France.
Oh, it's all about bicycle riding.
Oh, it's all about the team. The strategy, the psyche. Like they basically have cameras following all of the major teams. And then at the end of the season they put together this documentary. So the first one was 2022. 2020 or 21 or whatever it was. That was crazy. It must have been 2022 because the Dutch guy won it that year.
Yeah.
And 2023, the one I'm watching now, he's the guy everyone needs to beat.
And I followed normally the Tour de France, some of the mountain courses. I like sections when they come zipping down some of those hills.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
they gotta have nerves of steel. Hey, watch your...
So I believe this is Indian Lake Road. If you want to go a very short distance to Chaffeys Locks, you would turn right at this particular point and cut off a few kilometers. We elected to go a little bit further up to the next road before turning back, as we wanted to make sure that we had about 45 kilometers into today. But the easiest way is to take that first road that you come to after going over the railway bridge, which is only, I think, between 1 to 2 kilometers just down the road. So now we're on the road heading back towards Chaffeys Locks. So we're doing a small road section here, maybe 2 to 3 kilometers long. Now the distance from Perth Road Village to Chaffeys Locks is slightly under 20 kilometers, so 40 kilometers for the return trip if you get off at Indian Lake
They
Road.
just recently re-hardtopped this thing. Give it a week, all this gravel will be off.
Now we're back on the main road here, and you can see it's pavement, not hardtop, making it a little bit easier to drive. These roads aren't overly busy even at the peak season, so very safe and comfortable to drive. And shortly we'll be heading into Chaffeys Locks, the small village which has one of the lock stations as part of the Rideau Canal. And as I said before, it is a World Heritage Site in Canada, and if you're in the area and you want to get a sense for what the Rideau Canal is like and see this World Heritage Site, there's probably no better place you can go to check it out. I would say my second favorite place is Jones Falls, but I think Chaffeys Locks is a little nicer. I like the restaurant there. It was, or I should say the Opinacon Lodge, it was bought recently by someone else, and they've done a lot of renovation, so it has a beautiful, authentic feel to it. It's done up very nicely. Unfortunately, they're no longer renting rooms there at this point, and this is 2024. They used to, but it's a great place to stop if you're boating or just driving. As I said, they have lunch and dinner there. They have an outside little cafeteria area where you can get pizza, and a great place to stop for a beer or get ice cream as well. So we're now pulling into Chaffeys Locks. You'll find there's lots of marinas here, so if you need to service your boat or campers and so forth, you can find that here. And being a small village in the north, they also have an LCBO and a store as well if you need to do a little bit of shopping if you're in the local area. What I like about this little village is obviously the Rideau Canal. It's hard to beat, but there's also a lot of historic buildings around. Some have been renovated and changed into homes and cabins, and you can see the architecture, and I just find that fascinating. So this little village is just picture perfect. It's lots of big trees. There's no homes above 2 stories. It's just feels like you're way up north, and it's just beautiful being situated between the 2 lakes, Indian Lake as well as Opinacon. So shortly we'll be turning into the canal stretch here, and you'll see the boats and you'll see the locks. So we're off to our right here. You can see the first part of the canal and some of the boats that are sitting at the docks. Lots of boat houses and cottages in this particular location, and this is a public park as well, so you can come here and they have picnic tables. You can have your lunch if you brought it along, or as I said before, if you can stop by one of the local stores here. We prefer the Opinacon Lodge. It's just a beautiful setting and a historic building as well, and I'll show you that shortly.
Here we are, Chaffeys Locks, part of the Rideau Canal. So this is the Rideau Canal at Chaffeys Locks. And you've got people camping out here for a day or so. They can stay here as long as you pay your park permit. But most people head on all the way down from Ottawa right to Kingston. The locks are all done by hand, so they've got these little cranks on the side here. The guys working for the parks, normally students this time of year, will just used these hand cranks just like they did when the locks were built in the 1800s. And these locks are a World Heritage Foundation, UNESCO World Heritage, I believe. So right now we have some boats going through the locks, and the water has been lowered and the boats are ready to leave because the lower gate is being opened. So it looks like this lock drops them down about 10 feet. So at Chaffeys, it looks like they've only got one section of locks to go through before they hit. I think this is Opinacon Lake, so from Indian Lake to Opinacon, but you can correct me if I got it wrong. These are the same boats that we saw go under the former railway trestle from Indian Lake.
So this being a National Historic Site, they have lots of parkland here with picnic tables. So if you didn't want to spend the money and go to one of the local restaurants, such as the Opinacon Lodge, you can just bring your own lunch and just camp out here as well. So it's now off to the Opinacon Lodge for refreshment, a reward beer in my case, and some ice cream or milkshakes for the other guys. I want to show you this as well because it's just a perfect spot to stop if you're in the area.
Ice cream shop and cafe.
Park our bikes somewhere.
Can we park our bikes?
Oh, there's a bike rack right there.
Yep, there we go.
There you go.
A beautiful spot here.
Dave, are you doing an extra tour or is that
is a bell tower.
So the Opinacon Lodge has a formal dining room and bar, but we elected to go to their ice cream shop. You can get cakes and so forth here, but the main reason for us for stopping in was to grab some ice cream and have a beer. Beautiful setting, love the colors. It's got this old world charm to it as well, but the food is great. Lots of selection of ice cream as well. Interesting one I like here is called Campfire. It actually tastes like burnt marshmallows, which is pretty unusual. Came across it a few years ago, and normally when I come into a place and spot it, I get that. But today, after this particular ride, was feeling good and wanted to reward myself with what I call my reward beer for doing some physical exercise, and had a local IPA. So anyways, you can see the shop is beautiful. They had a lot local artists in here with their paintings. It looks like they were inspired by some of the Group of 7 artists. And they try to replicate that and give you that Northern Ontario feel.
Bark Rider Reward Beer Time. This time an IPA ABC in the Appenicon Lodge in the ice cream shop. But the other guy chose ice cream, I chose beer. Reward beer.
So since we're here, I'll show you a little bit of the Appenicon Lodge. You can see it consists of a variety of buildings. They used to have cottages near the lake. They're no longer renting those out, but they've got some beautiful gardens. They've done a lot of renovations over the last few years. I believe they have some new owners now. The gardens are beautiful. They have an outdoor patio or sitting area. They have a bar. They have restaurants. On Sunday in the summers, they have a roast beef dinner here, which was quite well known. And if you're in the area, I highly recommend going to that. But all the food is good and the setting is unrivaled. So if you like to be around the water and you like to be around historic sites, check out the Appenicon Lodge.
Yes, so the dining room is all seating. We have an indoor pub and then the front patio. So anywhere you like. Oh, that is. Yeah, of course.
We've got another trip coming. Here.
So that's our tour up to Chaffeys Locks. We're now going to head on back towards Perth Road Village. I'll just continue filming here for a short distance so you can see us going over the road bridge that crosses the Rideau Canal right at the locks. It is a single lane bridge, so I believe you have to stop traffic on one side or the other, so you need to take a little bit of care when crossing it. So this here is the old weir that below it had, I believe it was a grist mill or a woolen mill associated with it. You can see that off to the right-hand side. Today we're not going to stop here, but when they want to control the level of the water passing through the lakes, they can open up some of the logs here to let more water through. So we are now leaving the village of Chaffeys Locks, and we are going to take the first road to the right, and that road will take us back to the Cataraqui Trail, and we'll proceed all the way back to Perth Road Village.
I think that's the one we take, right? Yeah. Through the woods again. Back to the Cataraqui Trail in a moment. What a beautiful spot, eh?
So this roadway takes you back to the Cataraqui Trail, a little bit to the west of the train trestle bridge that we crossed over earlier at the entrance to Chaffeys Locks. And we're now back on the Cataraqui Trail, heading back towards Perth Road Village.
And here we are, back on the Cataraqui Trail. How you doing?
Good. How you guys?
Doing excellent.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you're in the Kingston area, it's only about a 30-minute drive north of Kingston off Perth Road, or otherwise known as Division Street if you're right in Kingston. That will take you to Perth Road Village, and just north of the village you'll find ample parking for your vehicles, and you can catch the trail there. But having said that, you can catch the trail all the way from Strathcona all the way up to Smith Falls. It's about 100 kilometers long. We like to do stretches of about 25 kilometers or a little bit less, so our total ride when we return to our cars is somewhere around 45 kilometers. I find this particular section of the trail probably the best for me. You know, the one from Harrowsmith up to Perth Road Village is also good, but this one I find there's less roads and a lot more lakes and a lot more woods and a little more isolated, and then you end up at Chaffeys Locks, which is just absolutely gorgeous. So it's probably my favorite section of the whole 100 kilometer stretch. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like and subscribe to my channel. So we're now returning to Perth Road Village, just exiting the trees here. We'll cross the road and we'll be back to our car.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are returning to our parking spot at, well, just north of Perth Road Village on Perth Road. If you're near Kingston, that's also known as Division Street. Although this is the end of our ride, I'll let you know what the total mileage is. But today I think we did about 45 kilometers return. About 45 kilometers return. Typically on our rides, we like to do between 40 and 50, so we go out and try to do a minimum one way and back. And in this case, we went a little bit further. Hope you enjoyed the ride.
So we actually did 25 kilometers, so we went past Chaffeys Locks and then returned to the little village, and then we did about 19 and a half kilometers back, so in total about 45 kilometers, just a little bit under.
And here come my two partners in crime. Heinz Becker, Andrew Hoppus.